Andy, tell us a little bit about yourself and
Okay.
tell us kind of what is UX like.
Okay. Well, a little bit about myself. So I've been working in UX for 25 years or so. So I've seen uh, the field develop and grow and change. So
Oh
what
yeah.
we thought of as UX was different 20 years ago than it is now.
Hmm.
But basically, UX is just a collection of different tools and methods and kind of like lenses on a problem that you can use to ensure that your product and service, whatever it is that you're doing, will work for the people who you're designing for, and that would get you product market fit.
Okay, so it really does come down to that experience and product market fit, and yeah, giving some guidance, yeah, of how do you accomplish that. That's what you're. It's like a toolbox in a lot of ways. Is that?
Yeah. So a lot of people think about UX as what are the colors, what fonts do I put in here, how rounded should my buttons be, and that's part of it, but that's a small part. So let me share my screen real quick.
Sure.
Let's see right here. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, so this is like a diagram of the levels of UX. So like any model, it's imperfect. So you can always, well, what about this? What about this? What other thing? Well, yeah, sure. We can have a discussion about that. But it's good to give this overview that UX incorporates all of these different things. So I'll go through this very quickly. You have a lot of people talk about UX, UI design. If you notice on this, UI is a very small part of what UX is. It's the surface. It's this visual design part. And as you go down, you get more and more abstract. So this model talks about the skeleton and lists all these different things: interface design, navigation design, information design. Then it goes down a level further to information architecture and interaction design. Then a little further into scope, functional and content requirements. And then at the bottom here, the base of everything is strategy, understanding user needs and business goals. And, this model is imperfect. I'm really big on the context of use of the environment in which the people using your product or service operate in. I focus more on these lower levels. Earlier in my career, I started with this part at the top, and I can still do it, but I'm much more engaged in this the full scope of what UX is.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. One question, even before we kind of dive into the different stages, a lot of times, just like we think about surface, a lot of times when people first hear UX, they're thinking more on the UI side. But also, even if you think you read out like, oh, skeleton, it's like, okay, it's interface, navigation, but even down to structure, it's like information architecture. It still kind of feels like there's always a screen involved. But I know that UX encompasses interactions and experiences that don't just involve a screen and a window. So is that like, can you speak to that a little bit? Like, so say someone is doing, maybe they're doing consulting, and so they don't have always a screen. They're doing a lot more person-to-person type of business, or maybe they deliver a service. How does UX, especially as you're talking about kind of that lower chunk, how does that apply to those forms of businesses where they're not making an app or something like that?
So the bottom three parts here are going to apply. They're not just digital. They apply to service and out in the real world. No matter what kind of a product that you're doing, you need to understand the strategy around it. You need to understand what are your requirements around that. Information architecture has to do with how you're organizing information around your business. So let's say if you're a coffee shop,
Okay.
there's a strong information architecture component to that. Like you have a menu, you have
Right.
the way you talk to your customers, and all that is things you need to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Now, skeleton in this model, this is very digital centric, but you could apply skeleton to service design.
Okay.
That instead of saying interface design, you could talk, well, what is your process for accomplishing what you want to accomplish? Navigation doesn't only apply to a computer screen. It's
Right.
you get around an environment. And information design applies to service as well.
No, that's great. No, that's a good way to name that. Service design is, all part of that UX universe there, and can be really helpful to a lot of type of businesses. We see people starting in this age where they're offering their smarts and they're selling their expertise in those different kind of business offerings. And so, well, let's jump in to talking through some of the different stages of business and how does UX apply in those. That sound good? Okay, let's talk real quick then about the event stage. And so while all of our other stages have been very sequential, an event is basically a major shift either in your business. So this could be a merger, this could be an acquisition, or it can be a major shift in your market. So this could be a regulatory change. This could be things like AI, just totally upending stuff, or other technologies that come in and disrupt. Something is disrupting. And so there's this event. And events aren't always bad. Some of them are good, selling your business can be a really good thing, but it's still an event. So any of these events, how do we take our UX toolkit and expertise that we've been discussing on all these other stages and apply it in these kind of non-standard moments of the entrepreneurial business journey growth.
Okay, so a good question that I identified for this stage is how might we future-proof our product and service, or how might we future-proof our enterprise, our business? So if you've done all the things that if you are constantly getting feedback on your customers, and if you have a skunkworks and tiger teams that are looking at alternative markets, unmet needs, other customers, that might be able to help you identify this event coming up. You may be able to predict that this might happen. Well, let's say it doesn't. Let's say there's still something that happens that how can you
hypothetically, like there's a pandemic that comes out of nowhere and your totally in-person organization becomes a distributed organization.
Yeah.
Some of us may be able to imagine that.
So UX can help. Well, UX research can help you quickly identify what is this change and what may the ramifications be, and then you can bring that back to your stakeholders, and you utilizing design thinking methods, identify the problems that come out of this change or the opportunities that come out of this change, and help the team figure out how to address them.
Because I think that's what you're describing there too. It's like so often when that event, especially like an event that's unexpected, comes up, it can be really untethering. And everyone, especially if your business has been in sustainability you have a more, a more homogeneous experience of your business over time. Like if you're in sustainability, scalability, or saturation, there's kind of a normal way of operating that's been in place, which is good, and you want for all that efficiency. But when this event comes and kind of breaks that, it can be really hard for a team to navigate. And while even like the team that exists in an organization at its early existential discovery and adoption stages, those tend to be more your entrepreneurial mindsets, where you kind of need, in a lot of ways, a different set of leadership for sustainability, scalability, and saturation. But then this event creates a change, and that leadership isn't going to often be as naturally ready to navigate new waters. So it sounds like that's a way that UX facilitation maybe can come in. Is that kind of some of what you're describing?
Yeah, yes. This is a place where it's really good to bring in someone from the outside, because everybody, your leadership they're focused on running the business. They're focused on all of the problems and issues that are just coming up on a day to day. And let's say that they're not going to know, that they're not going to have the mental bandwidth to identify what's going on and what they should do. And a strategy for dealing with an event could be, okay, guys, we're going to pull everybody. We're going to pull everybody outside for an afternoon, and we're going to go through a bunch of activities. We're going to be outside the context of our regular work, so that we can identify what is going on here, what are the ramifications of it, how can we deal with this on a short-term basis, and how can we deal with this on a long-term basis. And bringing in somebody from the outside who, now in an event, it's going to be very emotional.
Yeah.
And so by bringing someone in from the outside, you're going to be on your best behavior, or it's even somebody you can yell at, and you're not going to have to see him tomorrow. But it's just somebody who can help you figure out how to deal with this event.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a really good call out. And yeah, as we walked through those other stages, what you were describing was a lot of systematic application of UX. But then, yeah, here in an event that's kind of a one-off occurrence, it does seem like it's more likely the application is going to be, hey, let's bring in someone let's basically create a UX event to respond to this event. Whether it's a one-day workshop or maybe it's a 5-day sprint or something like that, you're bringing someone in to help bring that guidance, expertise, and facilitation powers to help you navigate something that was unexpected and maybe uncharted in a way, right?
Yeah.
So some are there, when someone's looking for someone to come in and run something like that, kind of run an intervention in a way, are they looking more for a generalist? Are they looking for, like, what kind of UX expertise are they looking for there?
So I think you need to find a skilled facilitator.
Okay.
There are skilled facilitators who are in UX, and there are skilled facilitators who are not in UX.
Gotcha.
When you're talking about an event that's very emotional, the facilitation skills are paramount.
Mm-hmm. And this is where, like, I see a lot of, like, people do this around change management, which you wouldn't, maybe on the surface equate to UX, but, like, there's people who facilitate particularly in how do you manage a change, in which, like what we're talking about with these events, like merging two companies, a market totally shifts. And it's like, the event is going to necessitate a change in your organization. It's like, change management type of facilitation might be also a good, it's a little bit outside of what we're talking about here, but is that kind of what you're talking about when you say people who are skilled facilitators outside of UX a little bit?
Yeah, well, just I know fantastic facilitators who are not UX.
Mm-hmm.
It's the skill of the facilitator I would look at, rather than are they UX or not.
Okay, rather than their particular, because they might actually, in some ways, like you're saying, not having deep expertise in whatever your company is built around can even be a large advantage, because they can come in and ask questions that are invisible to everyone who has expertise on the team. So it's not like they have to be experts in the domain that your company is operating in.
True, and also when you're talking about an event, so I'm looking at my own skills as a facilitator.
Yeah.
Now I'm very empathic.
Mm-hmm.
My focus is really on problem solving and strategic alignment and ideation. There are other facilitators who focus is on I don't know what the right word, emotional empathy. When you have an event before the leadership is ready to ideate on solutions or even identify the problem, they may need to deal with some deep emotions that are going on. And I'm aware of that there are facilitation methods to do that. I haven't actually.
It might be the pre-work that you need to really have the problem-solving work done. Is kind of
right.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And I think I could do that kind of facilitation, but there are other people who are more skilled in it and have more experience doing that specific type of thing.
Totally. No, that's really good. That's a good call out. I like that. All right. Well, let's kind of wrap up here and talk about like the overall, like, we've talked about each of these stages here. But if someone's just chiming in for one of these videos talking about an individual stage, give me just kind of like a recap as we've gone from existential all the way through saturation and then kind of an event. Just give me kind of a recap view of the role of UX as a business grows and matures.
So the role of UX across all these different stages is really very similar. This has to do with how formalized and if it's fractional or full-time permanent roles who are doing it. And just what goes across all of the stages are things like doing user research to find out about your customers and the environment in which they work, and then documenting that in an actionable way.
Okay.
And then, I described that and then visualizing things based on that, visualizing your service or your product, and then kind of refining that in the later stages as wireframes, as comps, as prototypes, and then continually iteratively testing and validating that you're on the right track, or that you're identifying where you need to shift as your customers or market shift.
Yeah, that makes sense. So no, I appreciate you walking through each of these stages. This has been really helpful, and I encourage anyone watching these videos, if you're catching just one of the stages, maybe watch the two adjacent stages, the one before and the one after that you're currently in, if you haven't watched those already, because it's really helpful to get kind of a picture as you've really fleshed that out. So
and I would add, after watching these, if you have any questions, reach out, and I'd love to meet and chat, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Andy, you've been a great resource, and I'm excited to see how you continue to help this community of founders grow their businesses.